I'm Hazel, it's Saturday today, which makes it time to sit down and catch up on the WoW news of the week, what I have been up to, and answer some of your questions. This week we got an official launch roadmap for The War Within. We finally have some hard dates to plan around for when the next expansion is going to come out. So here it is. Early access for the Epic Edition holders will begin on August the 22nd, starting at 3 p.m. in the afternoon Pacific. That happens to fall on a Thursday. 4 days later, not 3, but 4, the official expansion launch is on August the 26th, also at 3 p.m. Pacific time. That's a Monday. 2 weeks and a day after that, on Tuesday, September the 10th, Season 1 starts and the raid opens. During the early access period, there will not be any Mythic dungeons open, the weekly quests will not have begun yet, but you will certainly be able to get a head start on leveling the characters that you want to play in The War Within. And it was marketed as 3 days rather than 4. My pet theory for why there's an extra day in here is so that they have some wiggle room, a little bit of a buffer in case the game is not playable for all 4 of those days, that they can still deliver 3 days of playable early access while even if, not everything goes perfectly to plan. So as it works out, the Epic Edition players get a leveling weekend to themselves, and then everybody else gets in on Monday. I still think that the paid early access is the most anti-gamer thing that they've done in a long time. I know that other games do it. I don't care. I know that you can't get ahead in power in the 4 days that you're in early, but that's not the point. WoW expansions have always been, and I've said this before, but they've always been about the joy of the big day and splitting the big day up into the people that were willing to give you $100+ and everybody else. It still feels gross and I don't like it. I think it's going to make them buckets of money, and they're probably going to continue doing it because why wouldn't they? And I also don't really have a leg to stand on because I have an Epic Edition. I spent a couple million gold to get tokens to do it, but still. Anyways, those are our dates, and it does feel sooner than ever now that we can actually plot it on a calendar. Speaking of The War Within, we also learned about some new Mythic Plus affixes that they're going to be giving us. They're called Reckless, Thorned, Attuned, and Focused. So Reckless and Thorned apply to trash mobs that are not casters. Reckless makes them ignore armor, but reduces the armor of the ad, and makes them take extra arcane damage, whereas Thorned makes them deal physical damage to their attackers when attacked, but then they'll take increased holy and shadow damage. Attuned and Focused are kind of a similar situation, but for casters. So caster trash with Attuned will inflict extra magic damage, but take increased nature damage and extra bleeds. And then Focused seems like the most impactful one. It will give caster trash 30% increased haste, but they'll take 10% increased frost and fire damage. These feel, at least to me, and my very limited perspective, they feel kinda boring. They are mainly outgearable. If you overpower the content, you're not even going to notice them. And they do serve to favor certain classes a bit week to week. I think what they're trying to do is shake up the meta so that more people feel like they can get an invite from time to time. But it's not on bosses, it's on trash. And it's only on some of the trash. And it's only 10, maybe 20% increased damage from certain things. It doesn't feel to me like this is going to make a big difference. It kind of feels like a lot of words, but I have not tested it yet. I've only read them, so maybe I'll be pleasantly surprised when I'm encountering them in-game. Speaking of encountering things in person, the raid testing for the next raid has begun, and I've seen a couple of fights so far. I like them, which is predictable because I like most things, but I will say that once they got it working correctly, because raid testing is chaos and this one was especially fun, once they got it working correctly, I think the fights feel unique, they feel different from each other. They've done a really good job of something that they've kind of worked on a lot in Dragonflight, which was theming the boss mechanics to the fantasy of the boss, as opposed to just having, here's your boss, here's your soak mechanic, deal with it. The mechanics kind of tie into what the boss is and what they're trying to do. There's a big bug and he summons beetles, and then you crush the beetles and he's hungry, so you feed him the beetle guts, that kind of thing. I have found the fights that I've seen so far to be memorable, and I'm excited for the next raid tier. There will be raid guides coming from me. The final one will be late. You know the drill. And then the last War Within related thing I wanted to touch on this week is some conquest changes. There is no PvP vault row in the War Within, so to compensate, they're doing this thing where they give you bigger conquest caps and then more conquest in general relative to Dragonflight Season 3. So they have tables laid out here showing you what you would have gotten in Season 3 versus what you'll expect to get in the War Within. And in my opinion, PvP gearing is always best when it features the least possible amount of RNG. I'm not sure yet how they're planning to handle sockets for PvP items. I know they have them because I was messing around with them on the placeholder vendors on beta, but I don't know exactly how those work out yet in-game. And then over in Remix news, huge headline, they have doubled bronze gain from caches and tripled thread gain from spools. Whatever you're doing in Pandaria Remix, whether you're upgrading your gear or shopping off the vendors or just trying to do very, very big damage, it just got a lot easier and a lot faster. Also, they buffed Xiao Hao rep by 700%. The bronze buffs are probably going to be a little bit controversial because they very recently told us that the upgrade costs were here to stay and that they were not going to make them any cheaper. And that is true, but you'll be able to chunk through them a lot faster now because of how much more quickly you'll be gaining bronze. Hopefully that feels less bad for players that have already upgraded their gear. There was always a pretty strong chance that bronze was going to get buffed significantly at some point during Remix, although this is earlier than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be more like at the very end, kind of like how they sped up Plunderstorm in the final weeks. But this does make it much better bronze-wise to do your 3 Bazaar dailies, do raid clears, achievements and whatnot, although I think raid clears and Bazaar dailies are going to be the way forward if you're just trying to chunk through those vendors. Power leveling alts for bronze does still work. The video that I put out last week, as far as I can see, is still effective. People have been telling me they've been using it to get lots of alts leveled up very quickly. It still gives just as much bronze as it used to, but now the rest of the game is going to give more bronze in comparison, so the alt leveling, if you're doing it specifically for bronze and not for the alts, falls behind a little bit. If you do have a lot of alts, though, you could probably clean up in bronze by just doing random daily dungeons and scenarios for those caches, as well as the Bazaar dailies on each of them, and then just doing your shopping across your separate characters. And then as far as what I've been up to this week, in Remix, I finally got to 476. It feels so good. It's so weird to get bronze that I'm now back to dumping into the vendors. I got my Tusks of Manaroth all purchased. I'm thrilled with the bronze from caches because now I can just blow through heroic raids and get tons of bronze in a day. I have been using this Pandaria bronze completion week ore intermittently to check on how much I have left to farm and how much bronze I have left to grind. I tend to turn this week ore off by setting it to load never, and then I just go like toggle it on for a second when I want to check because I find it kind of stresses me out if it's on the screen all the time. But it's a good week ore. I will dig it up and link it in the description below. And then questions for this week. 4B asks, what class are you most excited to play in the War Within and why? I'm having difficulty deciding what I want to main. Every expansion happens to tons and tons of people. I'm playing Priest, unless I just go nuts and lose all my marbles and decide to play Hunter because it's been so much fun in Remix, but Remix is not real life and I need to remember that. I'm gonna play a Priest. I like the Priest hero talents. I like that for both Shadow and Holy, which are the 2 specs I'm planning to play. If I'm having kind of like a brain empty day, I can just spec Archon, press Halo once a minute, and be done with it. And then if I want to, you know, brain battery charged kind of day, you can get into the other specs and do more interesting things. Later on, when pre-patch comes out, there will be time to try out the classes in at least their basic form before the War Within comes out, before you have to commit to anything. So I would say narrow your list down as much as you can and then mess around with a few of them on target dummies during pre-patch to see if anything speaks to you. You won't be able to play with hero talents on pre-patch because those unlock as you level to 80, but at least the base class changes and reworks will be in once we get pre-patch. We don't know when pre-patch is, there's lots of guesses around, but we do know that it's going to be this summer and it's going to be before the War Within comes out. It's got to be at least a couple of weeks because there's going to be a pre-patch event and like catch-up gearing and stuff to do. They can't just give it to us like a day before. Riot Girls Gaming asks, will the gems transfer over to our regular realm once Panda Remix is done? I'd like to create a speed character and keep all the speed gems. So as far as I know, we haven't tested the specifics of exactly how the conversion is going to work when Panda Remix ends and our Remix characters get turned into regular characters. But I don't think we get to keep the Remix-y stuff. So I don't think we're keeping the gems, the cloak, the gear, the vigor biscuits, that kind of thing, the meteor chips. I think all of that is going to go away. I think they're going to put us in a set of template gear. I do think that speed characters are going to be super fun, and I also kind of want to set one up in the War Within for transmog farming, but I think I'm going to have to do it the old-fashioned way. And that has been the week. Thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions for a news video, please pop them in the comments and include the word question to help me find them. I appreciate you guys, and I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful day.